The ability to speak with confidence and present for impact is easily the most valuable skill you can have in today's world. When you can share your knowledge, you can facilitate change, and when you can facilitate change, well, you can change the world one conversation at a time. But most people think they can't speak articulately, confidently, or with impact. They get choked up by nerves, they lose their words, or that dreaded imposter syndrome shuts them down. Well, I'm happy to say that speaking is a skill that anyone can learn, yes, even you. And that's exactly what this podcast is all about. My name is Kat Matson, and welcome to Speaking with Confidence. Well, hello. Welcome to another episode of Speaking with Confidence with Kat Matson. Yes, I am Kat, and it's lovely to have you here again today. There are so many things that I want to say about my guest today, Rebecca Taylor, who is a visibility mentor and a photographer who does just the most amazing work in helping to reflect back to her clients their authentic gorgeousness, their authentic expression. But before I introduce Rebecca, how are you? How's your week going? What are you up to? I hope you're making the dent in the universe that you are intending to. Now, I've been saying a little bit lately that I would love for more people to have this podcast in their ears. Why? Because the more people who can show up confidently and speak up and be heard, then honestly, the better the world will be. I'm quite convinced that the challenges that are facing this world at the moment require diverse voices and diverse opinions at the various decision-making tables and in the various decision-making conversations. And you know as well as I know that one of the reasons that stops those diverse voices being heard is that confidence. It's that confidence to speak up. So the Speaking with Confidence podcast is designed to provide insights and tips and stories onto how to show up, how to have the confidence to be yourself, to express yourself, and to bring more of yourself into the world. So please, if you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, in fact, wherever you're listening, I would love for you to leave a review, leave a comment, just even just hit those little stars and say, yes, this was a fun episode. Better still, share it. Share it with your network, share it with your people and say, hey, I was really enjoying this podcast. That way more people get to hear how human it is to not feel confident when it comes to speaking, and perhaps get some tips on how they can show up and make their dent in the universe. So with that said, today's guest is Rebecca Taylor from Rebecca Taylor Photography. Rebecca is a visibility mentor, and I know lots of photographers, and what I love about Rebecca is that she really focuses on the authentic self-expression that she captures in her clients so that they can be more visible, so they can make a bigger impact, so they can be seen by more of their people. And in this conversation, you're going to hear just how Rebecca does that, but also why it's so important. You'll also hear both of us talk about how sometimes it can be really difficult to express ourselves, to be authentic, and that good old imposter syndrome does kick in, even for those of us who have been doing our thing for a while. So enjoy this conversation with Rebecca Taylor. Rebecca, welcome to the Speaking with Confidence podcast. I'm so stoked to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me, Kat. When I first met you, I knew the stars have aligned and we were meant to do this today. So I'm really excited to dive into the content today and have a good chat with you about it all.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And listeners, I should let you know that Rebecca and I met at an awards night and we were on the back table and it was the naughty table and we had a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
It was really fun.
Now, Rebecca, I have introduced you in the intro, but in your own words, tell us, who are you, what do you do, and why do you do it?
Yeah, I love that. So my business essentially is a branding photography studio, which caters to thought leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, speakers, authors, people who are creating big impact in the world in their own way. And it's to capture them and really capture their essence. And that's what I strive for. I also have a team of photographers who in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, and we work with corporate teams as well. Why I do it is, and it's been over a decade as a full-time professional photography business, and it's the transformation. It's seeing someone light up in front of the camera, doing something they're really uncomfortable doing something that has, there's so many built up fears around it, that, we'll go into all of that, but, and just seeing someone actually embrace their authentic self and actually expose that to me during a photo shoot, that is like, it gives me such a buzz that I'm on such a high after that. So I do it for that. I do it to see that person really come alive and to own their space. And I had worked in many different creative industries. I started off in performing background, moved into photography, working at a photographic studio where I actually saw someone crying on, after they'd just seen their print, and I wasn't the photographer in that role. I was the studio manager.
Wasn't me.
Was, yeah, and she was crying, and I just went over to her to ask, is everything okay? Maybe thinking she doesn't love the image of her, and she actually said she had organised the photo shoot as a present for her husband, and she said it was the greatest gift that she could give herself, and it actually still gives me goosebumps to this day. Because I just know the empowering nature that can happen with a photo shoot and having someone see back, have reflected back to them just how amazing they actually are.
Let's unpack that for a little bit, because I have been in the extraordinarily fortunate position where, because of the nature of speaking that I've done, and in particular, there was a period of my life for about 5 years where I was moderating the panel event for networks every single month. And every single month there would be a photographer, and every single month I would get photos of myself in my element and looking amazing, because I was dressed for it, but two, they were good photographers who knew how to get. And so I've had that incredible privilege of having that power of me being reflected back to me in a completely different way. So tell me more about that. Why is a professional photograph so different to how we see ourselves in the mirror?
That's a really good question. I suppose one thing I'm always striving for is that authenticity piece. So it's very much that genuine expression, that coming from that genuine place. I think when people look at themselves in the mirror, they're going to nitpick at every little thing. They're going to have maybe, I have clients who won't show their teeth sometimes because they've been bullied about their mouth, things like that. So it's all that stuff that is blocking someone during a photo shoot, but it takes a photographer actually to coach that out of them. So I think that's the difference, is when you're working with a professional photographer, is you're able to perhaps lean into some more positive aspects about yourself. And I always ask clients to share with me why they do what they do as well, because I think that taps them back into that place of service and of impact, and of actually them. It's not even necessarily being all about them. It's about just about being visible to the people who need them most. So I think you just see yourself differently when you're seeing it through the eyes of someone else.
I couldn't agree more, and I love it. Now, you mentioned visible there, and you call yourself a visibility mentor. Let's unpack that a bit. Why is it so important that I'm guessing, well, actually, everyone who's listening, why is it so important that we be visible?
Well, I mean, in terms of if you're, creating an impact, building a legacy brand, if you're wanting to create positive change in the world at, a large scale, the more visible you are, the more people will find you, and get the help that they need. And I also feel like the more visible the more you show up as you, the more able you are to build that connection, that really genuine connection between the people who need you and what you have to offer, your values, your personality. So, so it's so important to just keep showing up, keep allowing yourself to reveal some of those layers that we often keep hidden, because it just creates more connection and builds trust. And without that trust, people won't navigate to you as much as they would to someone else. So I think the more visible you are, the more that you liberate yourself more into visibility, the more chance you have of building that real connection and trust. So, and that bigger impact will come from that as well.
I feel like you're saying all of the things that I say on a daily basis. I feel like I'm having a conversation with myself.
I think that's why we're very aligned, Kat.
I know what I'm loving about this conversation is that you're so heavily focused on the authentic expression of how people are. You're not obviously interested in capturing a stock standard headshot or, the whatever. I think people often struggle with authenticity insofar as they don't know who they are to be authentic. So can you just walk me through, in a shoot where you're trying to get that authentic expression out, not so much your process, but what happens? How do you know when somebody's being authentic compared to when they were being a bit scared? How do you know you've got the authenticity?
You can see it in their eyes.
Yeah, right.
You can see it. You can see the sparkle that emerges in people's eyes. And I think when people come into a photo shoot or anything that's a bit out of their comfort zone in any visibility platform, whether it's speaking, writing a post on LinkedIn, there's always so much overthinking and analysis paralysis, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, all the stuff that goes on in your head, and all those thoughts are what's blocking you from really sharing who you are naturally. And so tying in, that authentic expression, when you allow yourself to hone in on what's true for you and your values and your beliefs and who you are, and get back inside why you do what you do and, how you want to show up and best serve others. When you're in that space, I suppose you're not so much in this blocked overthinking, analysis paralysis space, and therefore you just see these natural, genuine expressions emerge. And so I'm always asking clients to, just ask them general questions as well about, what you love to do on the weekend. Where do you like to travel? Questions that are going to get them outside of, I'm a professional and I must be like this, and in their corporate box,
I'm a robot.
Yeah. I must write like this, I must talk like this, and then I must show up like this if I'm to be considered serious in the business world. And I always have this saying about, you don't need to look serious to be taken seriously.
Oh, say that again.
You don't need to look serious to be taken seriously.
Far out. That is a mic drop moment. That is awesome. I love that. You do not need to look serious to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Maybe that's actually, when I think about that now, for me, that is so true. Like I rarely look serious. In fact, I have so many of those professional shots where I'm guffawing with laughter, like just.
I love that. So that's what I live for. Live for that. And where I get choked up is when people are actually choosing their photographs to because they go through a selection process, and I see these beautiful candid moments of laughter, and people are too scared to choose those ones because they're too scared to show those ones. And and for me, it's just, it kind of, there's a little part of my soul that sort of just dies in that moment, because I just think, God, if we could just all just show that side, show that joy, spread that joy, show the heart, show the love, like as corny as that might sound, but like really show that. Like, what's more magnetic, than that? People want to be around that, don't they? So why not? Why are we so scared to show that part of ourselves?
Why are we so scared? Why? Do you have any answers? Well, I guess let me go a little bit deeper. I mean, you said before that you've had a number of different careers. You've come from the performing sector, and that requires a lot of putting yourself out there, right? You've been on stage, you've written, in fact, you've touched the gamut, all of the different performance mediums. When you've been in that place, how do you get over that fear of showing your full, authentic self?
Well, Okay, so a couple of parts to that. So one is that when I first started my photography business, I was actually photographing actors, so actors and dancers, because I'd come out of that world. And what I noticed was, as much as an actor we assume would be just loving the camera, and they are, they're used to being in the spotlight and they're used to that sort of level of visibility, you think that would just come easy for them to be photographed. But when you're asking an actor to actually be themselves in front of the camera, it's the same thoughts, the same imposter syndrome, everything comes up. So it's the same process that I take people through. And what I found for me when I was in the performance world, was actually being on stage was the most liberating place to be. And I have said this, but I felt I could be more myself on stage acting as someone else than in any other forum.
Isn't that an interesting mind trip? So how do you be authentic now when you're not performing as someone else? How have you learned to be authentically Rebecca as Rebecca?
Yeah, well, we all know the Brene Brown quote that, authenticity is the practice of letting go of who you think you're supposed to be and embracing who you are. And so I think it's just that practice. So for me personally, it's a practice again. Like, I know enough, I've done this before. Maybe look at evidence of where you've been speaking on a podcast or you've been on stage and just go, actually, that was really good. And I got great feedback from that. And allowing yourself to just actually empower yourself. I think it's just self-talk, positive self-talk.
Totally. I have a frequent saying that the confidence comes from a combination of our experience and our expertise, amplified by or diminished by the stories that we tell ourselves. So by you going through that process of going and looking for the evidence that you can, you're like, oh yeah, no, you know what? I can do this. I'm actually good. I've been in similar situations before. Remember that time? And you go, yeah, okay, I've got it. It does. It comes down to the stories we tell ourselves.
Doesn't it? And so if you can just reprogram those stories into more empowering ones that serve you, then, that's the key, I think, quite often. And often, like, looking at even testimonials, I'll ask my clients to do that, is to go back and look at testimonials, and you'll that's the evidence right there. So it's just a reminder. And even looking back at your CV or applying for an awards application, even that process in itself is really empowering. You're reminding yourself of all the great things that you have done and the success that you have had and, the impact you have had on other people's lives. So, yeah, it's that process. And I think, in the moment just before speaking or anything like that, it's just getting back into that mindset for yourself and remembering those things and actually just telling yourself that, you do know enough. Because I think that we're always feeling like, that imposter syndrome is always, lurking around and telling us that, oh, maybe we need to just go and study a bit more, or maybe we need to do this a bit more. And it's just a constant, and, not so it's always great to keep learning, but it's just, I think at some point you've got to just hit go, don't you? And just do it, because confidence comes through action, right?
Correct.
If we're not doing the thing.
You can't think you're self-confident. You have to do it. You actually have to show up.
Do it.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, isn't it? It's getting to the doing, through and all of that to the doing.
Correct. And doing it even when you don't feel confident enough to do it. I think people wait to feel 110% confident rather than just going, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to
just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You talk about being a visibility mentor for your clients so that they can make a bigger impact in their realm, whatever it is. As you're helping them with their visual brand, I can imagine that there is also an element of your work where you're helping them to articulate who they are. I can imagine... I can imagine if I was, for example, to come to you and say, okay, I need a new corporate headshot shoot, and you'd say, okay, what do you need it for? And I might say, well, I need it for my podcast cover and I need it for these. And so in that process, you would be pulling apart, like, who do you want to be visible to? What do you want to be visible? So what do you find, I guess my question is, how do you help people articulate who they are, what they do, and what their contribution to the world is?
So I think what I mainly specialise in is being able to allow the safe space to be able to talk openly about all the aspects of what they do, who they serve, and where needed, dig a bit deeper, and then use that to visually create a visual story.
Yeah, right.
So there is, sort of many aspects of that. I do create, provide a brand audit. So I will go in and dig deep into sort of, not just page 1 of Google, but I'll go back and see actually how they are showing up, where they have shown up, what are the stories, the messages that they're sharing out there quite often, because that tells me a lot about someone. If one of my questions in a questionnaire I have too, a branding questionnaire, is to ask them what are some of their favourite inspirational quotes. Because I always just feel like that just tells me a lot about someone, like what matters to them more than anything else. And, I even think back to myself and what quote I always used was the Oscar Wilde about, be yourself because everyone else is already taken.
I love that quote.
Yeah, and it's one of my favourites. And I think if anyone asked me that and I shared that with them, then they know that authenticity is really matters to me. And actually just reclaiming who you are and not being afraid to be that. So it is a process that I take my photography clients through, but also when I do any visibility coaching or work I have a program that I host as well, the Leadership Visibility Breakthrough Program, and any workshops that I run is, aimed at really allowing, creating this space to access some of those maybe sometimes hidden reasons why they're doing that work too.
I love that.
Yeah, that can be quite powerful too, just to see a bit of an aha moment happen.
Totally. Totally. Changing topics a little bit. When I was digging through all of your stuff, doing my Google stalking of you, I see that you were a debater at school, a bit like me.
Yes.
Yes. So were you? What position on the debating team did you like best?
I often did speaker number 3.
Me too.
Did you? Yeah. But I was so dramatic. Like when I look back, I think people just put me in the speaking team just for comic effect, almost like almost just for entertainment. And I used to have so many hand actions. And I remember when I was third speaker, I'd be like, there was this one. Technology isn't the cause of today's problems because it isn't. Full stop. And I remember putting my hand out like that. I went full stop, and then that was it. Mic drop, done. I'm out of here. I thought that was it. I've got this, But I just, so yes, it was a lot of fun. What about yourself? Did you?
Well, I often tell the story that I loved being third speaker, particularly negative, because you couldn't prep. Like all you had to do, like as part of the team, you would rock up to the prep sessions, but you couldn't prep. You had to just wait to see what your teammates said, what your opposing side said, and then you just had to argue. You just had to bat back all of the arguments. And it turns out I was very naturally good at that. But I was the same as you. I was very melodramatic. No, you didn't say melodramatic. I said melodramatic. And I remember one time, I can't remember the topic exactly, but it was something to do with being patriotic and whatnot. And so I got up and I opened by singing the national anthem. I meant to stop after the first 2 bars, but then when I closed and I did it again, I ended up I got too far, and I was like, oh, I actually now have to sing the entire national anthem.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
But one of the reason I wanted to ask you about your debating experience is particularly, and I love that it's third speaker. When you're a third speaker negative or third speaker full stop, you have to very much speak confidently on the spot. Did that come naturally to you, or did you need to work on that speaking confidence?
I did have to work on it. It's funny actually, because I remember always thinking about, anytime there was a musical or production, playing that character, then that somehow felt easy. But then when it was actually being myself in a debating team, or if anyone would ever ask me to do a speech for a wedding or anything like that, it would just be like, ugh. So I feel like yeah, so I definitely feel like there was a lot more work to do around kind of being the Rebecca, self and presenting,
Yeah,
and
right.
that that's taken a number of years actually to really get to that point too. And I think when you're running your own business and you learn so much around this connection piece around showing up and sharing layers of yourself. And, that's what's grown my business. So I've
Mm-hmm.
actually, through that practice, I've got to this place now where I do feel much more comfortable being Rebecca, being me. But that has been a journey, definitely. And it's where I, found myself taking myself through a visibility transformation, because I was always thinking about my clients and the personal branding space and helping them with their brand, and then realizing that, oh, my own personal brand had just got left kind of somewhere behind. And so I took myself through a massive journey with personal development and lots of coaching and reprogramming my own thoughts around visibility and what it means to show up authentically,
Wow.
and actually the practice of actually doing it. So now I do feel much more able to be that. And yeah,
What was
yeah.
it? What tipped you off that your personal brand was incongruous? Like what tipped you off that had you go, "Oh, I need to do some work on this."
I think playing small, just not actually getting that visible, and helping
Just
my clients to
enough
do that and
visible.
promoting. Yeah, enough visible. Like I was definitely, had Facebook social media channel and a few different things, but I felt like my didn't really have any big ambitious goals or vision, or hadn't really taken the time to access what I really want from the direction of this business. And I can't blame having starting a family, but I did start the business at the same time as starting a family too. And I think you sort of do lose a part of yourself because you're just so focused on the
The
little
kids?
beings in your
Yep.
life.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think as the kids got older, and then it was probably that was a bit of the telltale to go, oh yeah, I mean, now I'm at a point now where I feel like I have more freedom to really invest in showing up, and serving more greatly, and doing a lot more in terms of my business, where I want to take that. And then just felt like it had flatlined.
Mm.
So yeah, so that was why I started the whole visibility transformation for myself,
I
and
laughed when you
realizing
said,
that,
yeah, I laughed when you
yeah,
said it was because you realized you were playing small, because that is such a consistent theme across this podcast, across the work that I do inside Impactful Presenters. So many people have that place of, or that realization of, I'm just tired of playing small. I want more. I want to be bigger. I want to make a bigger impact. And that's what it comes down to. It's not that I want to be famous. It's I want to
mm,
make a bigger impact. So what do
that's
you do
right.
now to be visible? It's not just your photos, like unless you're taking out a billboard. What do you do now to be visible to the people that you want to be visible to? What do you actually? My question is, what do you do now to play a bigger game?
Well, part of it is being okay with recognition, and saying, it's not a bad thing to want that. And so, recently I have applied for an awards, you know, an awards, exhibiting, so Brisbane Portrait Prize, things like
Awesome.
that, sort of going for lots of those opportunities now. And in terms of social media, definitely sharing my message a lot more frequently, and building a strong profile in that way. And writing LinkedIn articles, newsletters, Instagram content, and just allowing myself to more freely express myself, and and get that out there to more people. So things like this with you, Kat,
Hmm.
today. So yes, speaking engagements and things like that. So definitely I feel like they're the platforms to really be able to make a bigger impact, because there's a lot more people accessing the content.
I'm going to come back to the speaking engagements in a second, but before I do that, I want to ask you, or just reflect, I guess. People will tell me when I see them in real life, they'll say, "Oh my God, you are everywhere." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" "I see you everywhere on LinkedIn or on Instagram or on Facebook." And I'm like, yeah, that's part of my strategy. But I notice that it actually holds me back, because I'll now kind of go, "Oh, I don't want to be overexposed. I don't want to be," and I'm like, "Hang on a second. That person has seen me heaps of times. Doesn't mean everybody else has." I'm going to like. So, do you have those thoughts as well? Do you have those moments of, "Oh, I've already posted a bit this week, and maybe I just give everybody a rest from Rebecca."
I definitely have that, but I do know that, you know, we think everybody's, you know, seeing all our content, but the majority of the time it's really almost not being seen. Like, unless you're posting, you know, 10 times a day, it really is lost in the sea of all the content that gets fed through. So yeah, I do feel like that's a really strong message to share to people, is to not assume that, everyone has seen everything. But also to be aware that even if you're not getting comments on things, it doesn't necessarily mean that people aren't engaging, or they're not, you know, reading what you are sharing as well. So I think people get put off and think, "Oh, no one really cares, no one's really watching, no one," you know, and then suddenly you get this email out of the blue saying, "I've been following you for years and I love what you do." And you go, "Oh, really? I haven't heard of you," you know.
All
So
of the time. I sit there and go, "You could have said hi. You could."
That's right.
You
You
could have
could
let
have
me
said,
know.
"Hi, I love what you do." And isn't that another great visibility practice as well, is to actually comment on people's work who you maybe
Oh,
admire
yeah.
from afar, you know, but people are scared to even comment.
Yeah. That's very true. And I think too, we're often passive receivers of content as well. You know, we'll be scrolling through and just go, "Oh yeah, there's Rebecca again. Oh geez, I really love that portrait." And by the time we've had that thought, we've already moved on. You know, and
So
it is a
much.
conscious practice.
Yeah, it
You know, and
is.
people like you and I,
Yes.
we make our living from being seen, and whereas there are other people who they're consuming social media in a different way. They might be getting a regular salary, and it's not the same need to be hustling
Need
all the
to
time.
do that. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I remember my cousin actually said that. He said, "Oh, you're always on Facebook or something." This is a while ago. And it did put me off for a little while about posting. I thought, "Oh, yeah, I don't want everyone to think that I'm, you know, too good for myself. And, you know, who is she to show up like that all the time? And who does she think she is?" And that, yeah, but then it was a process again, and a practice of going, "Okay, yeah, but is he even my target market? Is he someone I even care, even reads my content? No. Is he running a business? Does he understand why I'm doing this?
Yeah.
No." You know, that's what it takes to build a brand and a business. It is about showing up. It is about getting visible, and it is about touching people. And I just wanted to, you know, that whole authentic expression, self-expression, that authenticity piece is actually around touching someone. It's like no, you can touch me if you want, Kat, but but
Through
actually
the
just like
screen.
emotionally, emotionally like connecting, you know. And I think that's where, again, you know, tapping back into your why, uh, releasing a lot of that conditioning, accessing parts of yourself, maybe those creative instincts. And what I loved about drama school was that you actually just are trained all the time to trust your instincts, trust your instincts. And that's
Yeah,
where
right.
improv games are used all the time, because they want to train you to do that. And so it's reverting back to that, and actually just letting go of all the conditioning and just trusting. And I think in that, showing that genuine care and passion for what you do and why you do it, that's going to resonate more powerfully, and that will cut through the noise as well. So when people are seeing this feed of content, it's the cat talking about, you know, what you do and how you do it. It's the great photograph that showcases the emotion and the real essence. That's what cuts through the noise.
Yep. That's so true. It is so true. I said I wanted to come back to the speaking. So you said you've been doing some speaking gigs. And obviously you're doing podcasts and whatnot. How important to you has been the ability to articulate what you do and then use speaking as a tool to increase your visibility?
it's something that speaking, particularly live on stage, is something that I've been organically and just at a very sort of slow pace building. But so, I think, again, that's another level of visibility that is, yet for me to practice and overcome. And I do
Do you
feel
like it?
like, yeah, I do. I do really like it. I do really like it. And as much as, you could prepare as so much and you can think about everything you want to say and everything, I think the speakers that really stand out are the ones where you feel that they're in the moment. They're really present in the moment on stage. And so, so bringing it back to actually, what you actually genuinely care about and speaking from that place from your heart is actually probably going to be the best way to access the real emotion and then have that conveyed to whoever's watching. So that's a practice in itself.
It is a
but that's
practice
what
in
I'm
itself.
going to keep working on myself
I
is
love that.
accessing that part.
I love that. So in closing then, I'm going to ask the question that I ask pretty much every single one of my guests, and that is, what is your top speaking tip that you've picked up over the years, whether it's speaking on a live stage or just having an impactful conversation one-on-one with one of your clients?
Yeah, I do feel like that speaking about topics that you actually do care about, like, as much as that probably sounds like, oh, duh, like, I think people probably do regurgitate things that they've said a million times, or they feel like they should be talking about this because their audience probably want to hear this. But is it something that you are genuinely passionate about? If it's not, I think the audience will feel that. And so for me, in thinking about topics, it'll take me quite some time to really think about the topic, because I actually only want to talk about things that I know I really genuinely care about, because A, it's going to resonate, the energy is going to be there, and it's going to resonate in a certain way for the message to become actually quite clear and to be inspirational and to make change. And it's also going to make a bit of a difference. I genuinely do want people to feel like visibility is their friend, and to feel like, the removing of the conditioning and coming back to that authentic place is so doable for anyone. So I feel like that's something I am really passionate about. So if I can make one person walk away from that event having felt like they've been impacted and changed in that area, then I know I've done my work. So it makes sense, really, doesn't it, to only be really talking about topics that you are genuinely so passionate about and actually want to make a change in that area.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. And if you're watching this interview, if you're listening, then you can watch on YouTube or on the Impactful Presenters website. If you're watching this, what you just saw then was Rebecca light up. Like, she talked before about that shimmer in the eyes. Yep, we just saw that.
We just saw that.
Rebecca, if people want to see your work, if they want to have you take their awesome authentic expression portraits, how can they find you?
So you can access my website for sure. So it's rebeccataylor.com.au, and get in touch via email. So my contact details are all there. I am also on Instagram, which is Rebecca Taylor Official. So send me a DM, drop in a comment, show me that you're there, show me that you're watching and that you like what you're seeing or reading or hearing, and practice that visibility for yourself. But yeah, it's where you can find me, and just reach out and we can talk about any sort of the visibility programs as well.
I also encourage people who are LinkedIn converts to follow or connect with Rebecca on LinkedIn as well, because some of her posts are just gorgeous. Like, I just sit there and go, oh yeah, that's what I needed to hear today about showing up. And it occurs to me that perhaps I haven't commented enough in reply, because we don't, right? We don't. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me today. I have so enjoyed this conversation. It's just been gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you too, Kat. Thanks for inviting me and for sharing the space today with me. And I look forward to many, many more chats.
Many, many, many more. Thank you. How good was that? Like, seriously, how good was that? I loved Rebecca's insights into how she can tell when someone is expressing themselves authentically and it's that sparkle in their eye. And she has to sometimes pull it out. She has to kind of ask all of the different questions before she gets it. And I just love it. And for me, as I round out this episode, it's why I do the work that I do in the Impactful Presenters program and in the suite of products and coaching that I offer. The more we can show up as ourselves and articulate ourselves, as Rebecca said, that Oscar Wilde quote, just be you, everybody else is taken. We all have something valuable to say. We all have something that we're keen to share with the world. We all have our contribution. And when we settle into that, when we settle into that natural expression of that and start sharing it, we can be so impactful and impactful authentically. And so as I said in the interview, I felt like I was talking to myself a lot of the time, but it was just such a delicious reminder of the importance of being visible, even when we feel like we're overexposed. Because if people can't see you, you can't help them. If people can't see you, you can't make your impact in the world. So I hope you've enjoyed that conversation as much as I have. As always, I would love to see you in the Speaking with Confidence Facebook group. So head over to Facebook and find Speaking with Confidence with Kat Matson. Just use the little search bar and you'll find it. It's exactly the same name as this particular podcast. You'll also find the link in the show notes, along with all of the links to connect with Rebecca. The other thing is, if you haven't already got a copy of my ebook, How to Stop Rambling, do that. Grab a copy, because one of the things that I do find is people say, oh, yeah, I've got all these things that I want to say, Kat, but I'm a rambler. I think out loud. I talk in circles. Grab the ebook. It will help. So head over to impactfulpresenters.com. That's impactfulpresenters.com, and grab yourself a copy of that ebook. And at the same time, pop yourself onto the newsletter Speaker's Notes, which comes out every Tuesday, with a speaking tip, what's happening on the podcast, what workshops are coming up, and, a bit of a working out loud musing from me. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you are encouraged to be more visible, whatever that looks like to you. Until I see you again, here's to confidence and here's to impact. See you soon.